And thank you so much for joining us today. We have two presentations lined up for you all. We have Helena Baldowska, who's a researcher who will discuss her work on robotization of law. And then we have Garth Watson and Peter Flynn, who are the co-founders of Librio, which is regulatory compliance management system. Tell us about their work. So two exciting presentations, and we're very much looking forward to that. Before we start our presentations, I wanted to see if we have any news from anyone in the group that you wanted to share, or any needs that you have that the group could potentially help with. If so, please pipe up, or as always, use the chat function in the Zoom. So I don't see anything at the moment, but with that, perhaps we'll turn it over to Helena, who will kick us off with her work on robotization of law. Helena, over to you.
Thank you very much. Hello, let me introduce myself. My name is Helena Martiniak-Baldowska. I am from Slovakia. I am a legal theorist dealing with the practical possibilities for replacing human work in legal area by machine by using theoretical knowledge about the law. I also studied business. I am currently working on a legal robot and a related initiative for the implementation of the artificial intelligence into the law. Legal robot is a personal assistant for supporting the performance of legal activities, answering legal questions, help to solve user problems in this area. It is intended for use by legal professionals. To begin with, it starts with the simplest implementation of the artificial intelligence into the law using current technological solutions. For example, tools for automatic entry of data from register into standardized contracts. Another example are tools for classification, clustering, preparation, and improvement of documents based on machine learning and natural language processing. Another example is also system for predicting the amount of compensation for damage to health based on machine learning. These are like very simple, basic tools, but in the future, this virtual assistant is supposed to will perform broader activities and respond to the voice of the users. The required state in the future is an automatization of all processes that can be automated, and it uses for wider population, not only for legal professionals, as it will work with natural language, not with legal language. Also, very interesting is also area of driverless vehicles. And in the future, liability for damage could be predicted. To the question why we should use something like legal robot, but also as well as this overall implementation of the artificial intelligence into the law, this has economic and moral justification. And moral justification is based on the fact that humans try to achieve machine qualities by memorizing concepts and procedures, or for one purpose, to make the same decision in the same cases in accordance with the system of the law. In doing so, the computer does this faster, more efficiently, and with fewer errors. The goal is to leave the mechanical repetitive task for the computer, and then humans should perform more skilled tasks. Also, the goal is to distribute work between the computer and the human, both to do what they are better at. And of course, the computer is more suitable for repetitive tasks. Economic justification is based on the fact that legal robot increases productivity and reduces operating costs. This approach will make it possible to achieve differentiation, increasing the quality of services provided, because it creates cost savings for manual and repetitive tasks and allow employees to increase their productivity. The company achieves a cost advantage. In addition to cost savings, it is also about increasing the quality of the work, as the computer has a lower error rate and employees can focus on more skilled work. The legal robot is based on the idea of legislation, which we can describe as computable legislation, because it's legislation which should be in the form that can be directly used by computers. The first step, of course, is digitalization of all legal documents. And this currently taking place, for example, in my country, but also in the European Union. The idea behind this activity is, in fact, new form of state administration. This area extends beyond the law to other human activities, as the law regulates human activities and the boundaries between the areas are blurred. Studying the topic, I realized that current system of law, as we know it, is the result of historical process and depends on the type of intelligence that processes legal information. And the change in the type of intelligence that will carry out the legal processes can also change the whole form and system of law. For example, the computer has almost unlimited memory in comparison with humans, which means that legal rules could be stored and used in detailed, concrete, and fragmented form. It could be expressed in natural language and not necessarily in legal language, and also in other different forms, such as pictures, real actual behavior, etc. The arrangement of rules, subordination to abstract concept of legal language, the hierarchical structure may change. And not only can change, but this is my opinion. In my opinion, they should change. The whole process that I described can be called as term robotization of law, which is my own term, and this represents the performance of activities in the field of law by machines. We can look at this as an initiative to robotize the law as a whole, as a social phenomenon. The theoretical question associated with this is whether the nature of law allows its robotization. I started with this topic by looking for the characteristic features of law, and I questioned whether its nature allows the performance of this activity by machine. And conclusion, awareness of the character of the law gives me belief in the possibility of implementing replacement of human work in this area by machines. The question still remains when and to what extent. The law is a special system that is structured. In addition, however, it is highly complex, interconnected with other human activities, interconnected with language and concepts, and thus in many respects vague and unclear. The law is such a vague and complex phenomenon that, in my opinion, it can only be captured in a variety of approaches based on different views of the law. Such conclusions can then take advantage of mutual synergistic effects. It is also possible to atomize individual legal activities into small processes and thus gradually adjust them for computer use. In order to robotize the law, we can move from bottom up from existing technologies to gradually expand to a certain degree of replacement by the machines. The theoretical question remains where these boundaries are. This question is identical to the question of possible existence of general strong artificial intelligence, in fact. But we can also accept a top-down view looking at the law as a whole, which should result in new creative, innovative technology. This whole process has a private and a public level. It is important to involve all entities and affect the whole legal process, from rulemaking in a computer processable format up to the performance of the interpretation and application of the law by judges and legal professionals. Successful robotization of law as a whole must take place sector-wide and cover all other administrative activities and processes in the state. It is essential to implement digitalization and also collection and storage of data on the state and supranational levels. My approach is based on the fact in which I believe that we can dispose of legal system. That is, we ask ourselves what it should be in an ideal case, and we adapt its form accordingly. In the case of the possibility of disposing of a legal system, it is mainly disposing of its form. The legal system that currently exists was created in conditions without information technology and the possibility of computer memory capacity. Therefore, the structure and wording of the rules may no longer be justified at present. It is no longer necessary to express some rules in abstract categories. Some rules do not even need to be formulated in language, but can be implemented directly by the action itself. Law is a man-made system, of course, apart from the natural principles on which it's based, and can therefore be disposed of and changed as needed. To the question whether we need a system that exists only for the system, and whether it is not appropriate to change the whole way of thinking about law and adapt it to existing technologies, I answer that it is time to start addressing it. Thank you for your attention.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Helena, for your very interesting talk. I think, what you're sort of getting at in your final remarks is sort of what we refer to as the sort of smart typewriters question. Sometimes, especially people in the legal academy, they would suggest that all this new technology, AI technologies or other technologies coming to the law and the practice of law are basically just a new way of smart typewriters, and they don't necessarily raise questions about the law itself, the theory of law, and sort of philosophical justifications for, whatever the legal rules may be. And I think, there's also the line of thought that says, no, with mechanization of the law, or robotization, that as you call it, that we see and that's happening in the marketplace, and even lawmakers are thinking about that. It also raises some very fundamental questions about the law, how the law operates in practice, how it should operate. And so I think that's what you're sort of getting at in your closing remarks. So where are you taking this research? What is sort of the sort of the next stage for this effort? Are you trying to just inform the public, or you said you're building a legal robot?
Yes, I'm doing this practical thing, which is a legal robot, which start with very basic thing, but I starting with these first steps. And also I prepared something like strategy for my country, for Slovak Republic, for implementation of artificial intelligence. But it's also like basic step, and I see it in maybe in 10 years or more to really move in this. And this strategy is starting with simple digitalization. For example, now we are in the European Union. We digitalize all legal documents, all like this state administration. And then after this step, we also started with collecting data. And after this, because this is like a necessary first phase, and after this, we should think about making some working groups and starting like implementing artificial intelligence, but step by step, from the most simplest things to more difficult. And okay, I am theoretist, but I also I think that it is possible. Always is question to what degree, because right now we should starting implementing artificial intelligence. For example, I told about this classification, clustering, preparation of documents. It's possible start right now. Okay, the level of this clarity or this level is like questionable, but we should start with this. And I see it like it's question of time. And this question is to what extent we should go and not whether we should start. So I'm thinking about starting replacing these mechanical repetitive tasks and move forward.
Right. Yeah, it's a question also, if you call what you're doing a legal robotization, right, then, this could potentially sound like you're in the business of, replacing some of the human stakeholders, practicing lawyers and others,
yes,
in the system. And so then, sometimes you see people who like, who perhaps, have the same goals, but they try to characterize what they're doing to actually enhance, sort of a lawyering, and rather than replacing lawyers. Anyways, but there's some.
I think this is like, I think that it's better to replace this mechanical task. It's better, right, because human force can doing like more skilled task. So for me, I know it's a real problem in the European Union. It is question, all these question about labor and replacement labor. It's like a big topic. But when you think about it, who wants to do something which computer could doing better? Yeah. It's right. This type of, and also artificial intelligence is better in memorize has huge memory and also can doing repetitive tasks better than humans. So
so you're saying you're
like
saying that
also,
in the US they're saying, using it to help lawyers practice on the top of their license. And you're almost saying there's a moral obligation for people to
yes,
leverage those technologies so that they can, really focus on the high skill kind of tasks.
yes,
But I want to put your
I-
attention to some of the folks. Okay, there's some questions coming in the chat, so I want to perhaps direct your attention to that. Guyana is saying, does your proposal go beyond natural language processing?
About
Well, when you talk about AI technology, natural language processing is of course
okay.
one important part of that, in helping computers sort of go through documents in human language and try to
Yes,
understand. But there's also many other approaches, and you have a particular focus in your particular project on a particular technology.
I also have this focus on natural language processing, because I started only with this like very simple form, like this classification, clustering, and then preparation of documents. So documents can be prepared by artificial intelligence. And also I am thinking about that it's better to have these rules in natural language better than in legal language. Yes, so and also like atomize these rules. So
Okay.
yes.
So Shugam is asking, I don't know, did you write a book about? He's asking if you have a link to your book, but I don't know if you.
Yes, I have, but it's in Slovak language, but I'm prepared it in English right now. It's in a web page www.právnyrobot.sk.
Can you put this? I think it's on your link here, right? You see the.
Yes, artificial intelligence in law.
Okay, with Google Translate, you could probably use some advanced NLP technologies to translate it automatically.
Yes.
And, Peter's asking if you're actually developing software and in what programming language you're working.
Yes, right now I am only in this theoretical level, but I'm starting with developing. Also, I am thinking doing it right now in European Union. We have a lot of support for all these topics. So I am thinking about moving forward and really like developing software. But this tools for automatic entry of data from register and for classification clustering, this is real, and it should be done really by this is easy way to start.
Well, yeah, I think, there's many projects going on in Europe and really anywhere around the world. So I think it's definitely exploding field, I should say.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking if you're talking about, and we understand that you're more a theorist, and if you're talking about sort of replacing mechanical tasks, are you thinking also about addressing the issue of minimizing unconscious biases that people may have?
This is like in European Union, this is in ethic of artificial intelligence. It's like topic of ethic of artificial intelligence, and yes, I am thinking about this. I have like my theoretical position, but it's theoretical, that I should like fight against biases by putting to the data like ideal cases. Yes, because we have, for example, like, I don't know, bias about gender or about races or about some sort of behavior. And my like theoretical position is putting to this data which are kind of and put there some ideal cases to clear this data and to have like a better starting point. But yes, this is question also in European Union, like of ethical of artificial intelligence.
Okay. Right. Anyone else have a question? I think. Yeah, I think Guyana was hoping to get a clearer definition of what your proposal is, right? What you're proposing either to policymakers, or if eventually you start to create a solution, you know, what's your proposal to your customers, right? If you're creating a technology.
Okay. So this is my proposal, like in public sector. I'm really mean it. I mean it that I would like to start something like change in the way how these legal documents and rules are not only like stored, but also expressed. So right now I am thinking about this. I told this that I am thinking about changing like this whole system, because in my opinion, when we have computer with this memory, also we have artificial intelligence. So we should express rules in different form. We should express it in really like atomized form, in concrete form, in a fragmented form, in form of natural language, and also not in linguistic, but we could express it in like actual behavior, in pictures, etc. So I'm really thinking about something like data system for these new rules.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think you addressed Peter's question already now, how you're thinking about replacing natural language with domain-specific formal languages. I think that's sort of what you're suggesting. And you know, we're thinking at CodeX, we're thinking about this quite a bit in connection with turning natural language contracts into computable contracts and using a contract definition language for that. And that's, of course, the challenge, right? If you use NLP technologies that try to process the human language, they are impressive in many ways, but they still have a long ways to go before they can actually extract the logic of and arguments from the human text. And so in many areas, it's, you know, it doesn't, you know, where you need 100% fidelity, you know, and you only get like 80%, which, you know, may be impressive and useful in many areas of application. In the legal domain, it's just many times, and most of the times, it's not enough. And so you want to start with something where you turn the legal knowledge into a computable form from the get-go. But anyway, so I think that's a whole separate conversation, and you know, you should participate in some of our events around this. Yeah, Peter saying better to design an unambiguous subset of natural language and lean on a structure editor, inverse parser to help in authoring. And you know, I think that's one approach. You know, I think what you're talking about is also, you know, I think it's Bob Kowalski who has developed the logical logical English is one approach, and we have our contract definition language that we're using for computable contracts. Anyways, we're pretty much at the end of the time for this particular talk in our session. Helena, I was really appreciate you sharing with us, and thanks. I think folks, if you want to follow up, you see on this slide, you see the email address. You see Helena's email address. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And it's great to have you. And we will turn it over to our next speakers, which is, of course, Peter and Garth from Librio. Peter, Garth, are you there?
Hey there,
and,
yes we are.
Hi, hello.
Thanks for having us.
Have you. Helena, could you please unshare your screen so that we can share Garth and Peter's presentation? Thank you very much. All right, where are you folks located?
Thanks. We're both in London actually. We speak South African, but we're in London.
Okay, there you go. Well, that's great. And yeah, thanks so much for joining us. And we're excited to learn about what you're doing in the regulatory compliance space.
Absolutely. Well, thanks very much for having us. So I'm Garth, and I'm here with Pete. And we're really glad to have this opportunity. We're just going to share a bit about what we're up to at Librio. We'll give a bit of background, and then we're going to give some quick demos of what we're doing. And Pete's going to demo our SaaS app, and I'll give a quick demo of some of the collaboration software and some new AI tooling that powers the creation of our global regulatory database. So we've got a big, bold purpose, ensuring everyone knows what to do for a just and sustainable world. And our customers are typically companies that operate over multiple jurisdictions. So a lot of global companies, and then also in the States, obviously the States is many jurisdictions. These customers of ours use Librio to know the regulation that applies to each of their operations, know what the regulation requires of them, and then assess and report their compliance. So it's not just knowing what the law is, but it's knowing what they have to do too. So what we're doing is we're producing a global regulatory database of legislation, regulations, and standards from hundreds of sources globally. And we ingest the regulatory content from these many sources and then transform and enhance them with metadata by leveraging online workflows in Librio Collaborate, which is a microjobbing platform that we've built. We're a crowd of subject matter experts and other microjobbers, law students, lawyers, compliance professionals, and the like, collaborate together to produce regulatory data. And then that newly structured data is then made available to customers via API, and we keep it up to date. And so different SaaS applications pull from that, our own one, and also third-party SaaS applications. And this, as I said, enables customers to assess and report their compliance. It's actually worth mentioning that our first customers, and in fact most customers of Librio, aren't lawyers. They're people that need to know what the law requires of them as part of their jobs. And we started out with the domains of environment and health and safety. These are areas of law that haven't traditionally been the domain of in-house teams or those in the legal profession, but folk like compliance managers, risk managers, and people like environmental managers or health and safety managers. So this is just a map of our coverage. You can see some of the coverage that we've got. We've made some significant progress already with the coverage in 84 countries and 500 odd subnational jurisdictions like states, counties, municipalities, and the like, across a number of legal subject areas. I've mentioned a couple already, also data protection, employment law, corporate governance, and so on, all mapped against the ESG framework, which is the latest TLA out of the financial industry. I'm going to hand over to Pete to demo demo our library app, which pulls on the library API. Pete.
Thanks. So I'll show you a little bit of some other countries, but we'll start with the United States because it's probably familiar to most of you. So again, as Garth mentioned, our customers tend to be, the use case at the moment is what some people call technical compliance or operational compliance. You might be a mine or a manufacturing company or a large retailer who has many, many physical properties, operations around the world, and you want to know what you have to do to be compliant at each one. So what we do is we create what we call a stream, which is usually a physical property, and that has a physical address. And so based on the address, we already know what law they are under. But it's complicated because in the US, for example, you're under federal, state, county, and city law at a particular physical address. And then not all the law applies to you because of what you do. So based on your industry and your operations, different things are going to apply to you. So we have a process of doing what we call applicability. We find out what this company does at each operation, at each site, and we narrow down the law that applies to them. And then we ingest that law into our system and we organize it according to these jurisdictions. So federal, state, county, city in this case. And we also decide, they'll ask us for specific legal domains. So we need to know in our metadata, what is environmental? Or if they've asked for something more narrow than that, like waste, what does waste actually mean? And so we have to know that. So all of that data is then appended to the legal texts. We ingest the whole legal text. So here you can see it's all in our database, neatly organized and kept up to date. And we do this using scrapers and then a really, really complex multi-step transformation process that ensures that this regulation exists in a format that's machine readable and cross-comparable because it has to be compared to jurisdictions all over the world. I'll show you that in a minute. Then what we do is we identify applicable sections to this customer. So now you're only seeing the short list of things that you actually have to worry about that actually apply to you for compliance. And Garth is going to show just now how our AI tools actually identify sections of law that contain obligations. Further to that, we then are able to add meta content to these sections of law, which customers can use to make it more usable to them. Things like search, tags, plain language summaries in some cases. Sometimes we extract the consequences of non-compliance and so on. Now, because of time, I'm just going to go really fast. I'll just show you how cross-comparable it is. For instance, now I've just hopped over to Australia. Now I can go over to Germany. And now you can see the law in German. So potentially this customer's got operations in all of these countries in specific places. And here you can see it's even European Union, the national law, the state law, where they are, and the district. I'm going to hop, here now I'm in the United Kingdom, and the UK has got a totally different structure because it's got sovereign, meaning, the United Kingdom. Then you've got England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. Then they've left the EU, but some of the EU legislation is still retained, and so on. Now, I'll go to South Africa, where we have got some quite rich metadata, and I'll go into a particular section, and I'll just show you the types of metadata we can create. So here you can see there's a note, which basically creates plain language descriptions of this regulatory text. We're experimenting with using AI to do this. We've played quite a bit with GPT-3, and we think that we can do a lot with that. We're also able to extract the consequences of non-compliance. So it's very quick and easy to see, if I don't do this, what am I in for? People can then comment on that, set tasks for themselves and others, and reminders so that they can actually start to practically manage their compliance against these sections of law. Then what becomes really important is knowing that whether the law has changed. So let me go over to Texas. Quite a bunch of changes that happened this week. This one, for instance, federal pesticide tolerance bill, and we extract the highlights telling you exactly what this is all about. We track who's read and understood it for reporting purposes. And this helps companies to ensure that their employees know what they need to do in order to continue to be in compliance. Further to that, we've extracted what we call self-assessment items, which are the things you need to determine to find out whether you're in compliance. And against each self-assessment item, we are able to associate the applicable regulation to that, or requirements. It might not just be law, it could be standards and other requirements that you have to have complied with in order for this statement to be true, in which case you can then say, yes, I am doing that. What's really powerful is that these items are cross-comparable. They apply anywhere in the world. So the thing that really differs is what the specific requirements are to those assessment items. And this enables cross-comparable reporting. You can see across my 50 operations around the world, how well are each of them doing for this particular thing, even though the specific requirements might differ. There's obviously a lot more to say, but for purposes of time, I'm going to hand back to Garth so he can carry on the demo and show other elements of the system.
Thanks very much, Pete. That was cool. What I'm going to show you now is a little bit about how we create some of this data. So we've created a bespoke collaboration software platform called Library Collaborate. And the idea is here that many people from all over the world can contribute on a flexible basis and do as much or little as work as they like to help contribute things. So we break everything down into micro jobs, and you log in and you basically can just click on a job. It's like, imagine you're an Uber driver and you see on your app, oh, there's someone that needs a ride. Not quite, but click on the job and get the description. It says we need to add an assessment item in this bylaw about sewerage. It seems cheapers. And so here are the details, and then if you click on that, you'll get the job. And this is where we do the work. So here's the bylaw. We need to see assessment items, and the job is to say, find all sections of law where there's an obligation and append Librio structured metadata to it in order that can be made available to customers sometime in the future in the platform. So there's a whole lot of things that we do to show the different you can see here the different types of metadata, and the job here is to obviously not in a definition section, that it would be the job for the collaborator to go through this, but then we've created a whole lot of efficiencies and certain NLP technologies to help users find the right assessment items to append to the sections of law that mandate those things. But as you can tell, it's still quite time intensive. It's been super efficient, and we've processed a lot of law manually with just really excellent processes. And we've got to the stage now where we've ingested law from kind of all over the world. And like I said, some 80-odd countries, over 500 different local levels of government. And because we've had so many different collaborators around the world manually annotating the law, we've got reams of like gold standard training data, really. And so now what we're able to do is to build classifiers and to use the annotations that we've developed to fast track the processing of the remaining law. So I just want to show you something in this tool, Untitled Library, which is you could think of it as the first collaborator in the process. What I didn't mention is the collaborators form part of a workflow. So we've set up a workflow and a peer review system. So if I did that task that I was clicking around earlier, I would then submit it, and then it would get checked by somebody above me in the workflow. They would then review me, rate me, and some of my ratings would enable me to would enable me to bid for other work. Otherwise, if I'm poor, I just get kicked out the system. And so we've basically got this virtual production line, which just effectively the incentives are set up such that the work tends towards perfection, and as I say, it's peer reviewed. So think of the AI as the first collaborator in the process. So I want to just show you something. So this is if I had a task to append assessment items or context questions, which are the questions that we ask customers to determine whether a law applies to them, I would find it, I'd locate it. So let's just say I'm in America and I'm searching for, like, let's just say Los Angeles, and I select this guy. I then go into it. We've developed classifiers that chunk the law, and that also rate it according to whether it contains an obligation and to what extent it's an obligation that has a private bearer or a public bearer. So I'm just going to go on to this one, permitted carry-out bags, and the darker the pink, the more likely it's got an obligation, and the darker the gray, the more likely it is a private one. So clicking on this, I select this. Now we're using a nearest neighbors approach, which works on sentence embeddings. And this now I've selected this, it pulls it over here, and I'm now saying, show me all sections of law in the US or anywhere in the world that are similar. And here we can see this is quite a widespread kind of provision. So LA, Novato, Glendale, Oceanside, Pasadena, Pico Rivera, and so on. And we were intrigued to find out that in Nigeria uses a lot of American law in their statute books. So if I say, okay, now I'm processing this, and I actually agree as a human that that's a good one and that's a good one. Now tell me what metadata it is, and so we're kind of like in the early stages of this. This is very much in alpha mode. So we're saying this is a suggestion, as opposed to we're just going to fire this as fixed metadata onto our law. But here are some assessment items: comply with the standards requirement for recyclable and reusable carry bags. And also to this section, you'd want to ask a library customer, are you a shop? Because it applies to shops. So if they are a shop, then they get it. If they're not, then they don't, right? And so then we just click on there, and then this is the way the integration is working at the moment. As I said, it's very much alpha, but here we go. Now we can get straight to that and start marking up the law. The collaborator the AI has acted as the first collaborator in the process, and as we use this, we're confident that it's going to get better and better in recommending the correct metadata as it gets peer reviewed. So that's what we wanted to show you today. Thank you very much.
That's awesome, and I think a lot of people in the chat have also expressed that this seems just intuitively tremendously useful, and I think with your system you will probably promote regulatory harmonization around the world if people can so easily find what the rules are in different countries. But I think what's interesting is so this layer you put on top of the regulations to help you organize and understand, what's relevant for your organization, right? But you said, Garth, you said that there's still a ton of information there, right? And it's hard to process, right? You narrow it down to a relevant subset, but there's still a ton of information. And so I'm wondering two things actually. First, how do you then, tie this information to very specific, what I understand your task is, and that's what you have your community help with, is to figure out, you have the regulations and figure out which rules and regulations actually have a specific obligation in them that's relevant, right? And then you have to sort of, I think, then that obligation needs to be brought to the customer's attention at the right time, right? So and in the right context, right? And tying that together, these decision points, where this company, that's a real, that seems like the holy grail almost, right? When you can trigger the alerts, it's like, oh, tomorrow, don't forget to file your taxes, and, don't forget, whatever, you have the data, you said, by the way, some of your pipes are leaking, and you get, this is, you could do all that, but that seems like a really challenging task, and so but very exciting tasks at the same time. This is really, really powerful, and at the same time, I wonder, what is the process, right? If you onboard a new customer, how automated is this discovery process of understanding, even what area of regulation to pay attention to, right? Like every company has like sort of an aura of regulations around it that they need to keep apprised of. There might be new ones coming in and so on. How does that process work to even tune into the area that you need to look into for a particular company?
Yes, I mean, you asked some good questions there. Actually answering one of the previous questions that you asked, I think is good, would help the second one. So we're actually, we're creating a database. So the idea, this isn't kind of like, we're not serving clients, we're creating a database where all the laws there marked up, and it's marked up according to domains. So let's just take environments. So environment, then it's all processed according to what effectively appending as metadata, the topics as questions, which we would ask customers if we were in a consultation room. So do your operations involve hazardous waste disposal? That is like a question that is appended to metadata on the questions that if they answer yes to, those sections apply to them. And so we build this whole database up. And so applicability is the determination of what regulations get prescribed to a customer in their library stream is actually, it's a matching of customer data, like the things that they have in their operations, with our metadata, which is the metadata that gets appended during this workflow. And the workflow, we had 15 minutes to demo. That's why we rushed through it. But the whole workflow is a process of narrowing it down so that literally like certain collaborators are just doing one little thing, but they do it on the back of, they would append a assessment item, but it's on the back of a previous one that identified that there was an obligation, which is where the AI actually starts coming in. So also hard to answer quickly, but yeah, that's how we'd approach it. That's how we do approach it, rather.
Got it. Okay, so Sarah is saying, very cool. How are you approaching circumstances where regulatory legislation for EHS, for example, has implications on labor or privacy legislation? Do you model implications across legal domains? How do you approach situations where there may be conflicts between laws? Do you have a way to model and determine when an obligation takes precedent?
So we see ourselves as automated legal librarian, not an automated lawyer. And okay. So we don't have a way currently to model and determine when an obligation takes precedence. Like that's a handoff to lawyers. Now you need a lawyer. We saved you a lot of money figuring that out. I'll go backwards. So it's like there's value in that. It's like we do that, but we provide the information. But now there's something. It's a gray area. It's unclear. How do we figure that out? Well, the answer is we don't. But fortunately, we provided to you 99% of the time law that was clear, which is the case most times. Law just gets a bad reputation because of it famously ends up in dispute, but 99% of the time, the law of sale and contract works perfectly well. Every time you buy something at the store, that's the law of contract working brilliantly. So in the fuzzy areas, that's where we hand off to lawyers. And so then how do you approach situations where there may be conflicts between laws? Similarly, how do you model implications across legal domains? We have a hierarchy where the legal domains is one facet of what we call a compilation, where which is typically the big buckets: environment, health and safety, corporate governance, data protection, employment, and so on. And there are times where a law, it falls into both buckets, and so our data model caters for that as well.
Got it. So those two, I mean, Claudia's question, and I think Sarah's second question, and well, actually Mateus's question, I think, are related, which are, what are your governance checks to ensure that the legislation is always up to date? And Mateus is asking, how do you ensure that it comes from legitimate sources, and how do you overcome language barriers for your recommendation systems?
So with sources, we always obtain the best available source in any jurisdiction. Often, if to the extent that that's like a commercial provider, we work with them. Like in the States, we have a relationship with Fastcase, which I'm sure you guys all know.
Sure.
But we work with the best available source. So in other countries, we have commercial arrangements, but otherwise get the government, the websites, or the regulators. And legitimacy is just it's basically like, I mean, we're a lot of us are lawyers at library. I'm a lawyer. You can sniff out a dodgy source. So we're pulling from legitimate, trusted. We're pulling straight from the authorities most of the time.
Got it. And so what's sort of like your current sort of status as a company? Have you launched a service already? There's already customers using it, or this is sort of like still very early stage?
Pete, do you want to grab that one?
Yeah, sure. So we've got about 100 customers. We started in sub-Saharan Africa. We had quite a big customer base there. Then we raised venture capital out of the UK. We've raised about $5 million to date.
Wow.
And we now have, about 100 customers in about 40 countries. Somebody asked, oh, thank you. We still feel like we're very early stage and we're just getting going. And we've spent most of our investment on product development, not really on customer development. So we're at about $1 million in annual recurring revenues at this stage. So we're still early stage from a revenue perspective, but our product's quite mature.
Yeah.
And really now our goal is to expand our coverage of content so that we can service more customers more immediately. And then starting to move into other types of regulation. So not just environment, health and safety, particularly following the ESG track, which is becoming increasingly important. But that means moving beyond environment, health and safety, and the other parts of social and governance that we're not covering at the moment. And beyond that, just kind of keeping on extending our end user functionality to make it more and more useful for people.
Got it. Well, it's very exciting what you're working on, and it's really it seems like a really useful system for any company. And compliance is like such a tremendously challenging field, and this is a great example of using technology in a legal use case. So thank you so much for sharing, and congratulations on your great success. And yeah, we have to wrap up here. It's already 2:30 here in California. I really appreciate you joining us. Helena, also thank you so much for coming and joining us. And yeah, thank you all for for participating. And yeah, please check out, very soon we're going to announce the agenda for our Future Law Conference, which is going to happen on April 7th here at Stanford Law School. Knock, knock on wood. And so, yeah, we'll send out an announcement to our normal channels early next week, I think. And hopefully many of you will be able to participate. And yeah, good to see you all. Thank you again. And see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.